Excellence is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with applause, excitement, or perfect timing. Excellence is quiet. It shows up when no one is watching. And that's exactly why most people never master it. Most people believe their life will change one day. One breakthrough, one opportunity, one burst of motivation that finally makes everything different. But that day never comes. Not because they are lazy, not because they lack intelligence, not because they don't want success badly enough. It's because they misunderstand what excellence really is. Excellence is not something you do once. It is something you live every single day, in ways so small they feel insignificant, until they compound into a life that looks unstoppable from the outside. Every day, you are training yourself into someone, not intentionally, not consciously, but relentlessly. The way you wake up, the way you respond when you're tired, the standards you keep when it would be easier to lower them, the promises you keep or quietly break with yourself. These moments don't feel important, but they are shaping everything. Most people fail not because they aim too high, but because they live too casually. They treat days like they don't matter. They treat small decisions like they won't add up. They treat consistency like it's optional. And then they wonder why their life never changes. But excellence doesn't require intensity. It requires identity. It's not about pushing harder for a short period of time. It's about becoming someone who shows up, especially when it's boring, uncomfortable, or inconvenient. This audiobook is not about motivation. It's not about hype, and it's not about chasing results. This is about becoming the kind of person for whom excellence is automatic. The kind of person who doesn't wait to feel ready, who doesn't negotiate with discipline, who doesn't depend on mood, emotion, or inspiration to do what needs to be done. Because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. Your future is not decided by what you know. It is decided by what you repeat. And whether you realize it or not, you are repeating something every day. The question is not if you are building a habit. The question is what kind of person those habits are building. In the chapters ahead, you will not be given theories. You will be given a mirror. You will see why excellence feels boring and why that boredom is your greatest advantage. You will understand why motivation keeps failing you and what replaces it. You will learn how daily standards quietly shape destiny, and how the smallest consistent actions rewire identity at the deepest level. This is not about changing your life overnight. It's about changing who you show up as every day until success has no choice but to follow. Take a breath, slow down, and listen carefully. Because excellence is not waiting for you in the future. It is asking one simple question right now. Who are you becoming today? Most people think excellence is something you reach. A level, a title, a result that proves you finally made it. That belief is why most people never experience it. Excellence is not a destination. It is a daily identity. It is not something you switch on when life feels convenient. It is something you carry into ordinary days, especially the ones that feel unremarkable. The truth is uncomfortable, but liberating. You do not rise to excellence. You train yourself into it. Every day, you wake up as a certain type of person, not by accident, not by luck, but by habit. The way you start your morning, the way you speak to yourself when no one hears, the way you respond when resistance appears, the way you act when no reward is guaranteed. These moments don't look impressive. They don't feel heroic. But they are the moments where excellence is either reinforced or abandoned. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because their daily identity does not support their ambition. They want extraordinary outcomes, but they live with ordinary standards. They want discipline, but they negotiate with discomfort. They want consistency, but they treat effort as something optional. And then they wait. They wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait for the right time to take themselves seriously. But excellence never shows up for people who wait. Excellence responds only to those who act daily regardless of how they feel. Here is the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, "What do I need to achieve?" Start asking, "Who must I become?" Because results are temporary. Identity is permanent. If you chase results without changing identity, you will always fall back. But if you build the identity first, results become inevitable. This is why excellence is not emotional. It is structural. It is built into how you live, not how you feel. The disciplined person does not wake up motivated every day. They wake up committed. The focused person is not free from distraction. They have trained themselves to return to focus faster. The consistent person does not have endless willpower. They have fewer negotiations with themselves. Excellence begins when you remove debate. Most people lose before they start because they argue with themselves every morning. Should I get up now or later? Should I train today or skip? Should I do the work now or wait until I feel better? Every negotiation weakens identity. Every time you delay a decision, you reinforce the identity of someone who hesitates. But when you decide once and act without discussion, something powerful happens. You teach your nervous system who is in charge. Excellence is not built by intensity. It is built by standards. Standards are invisible rules you live by. They decide how early you rise, how seriously you take your word, how much effort is enough, what behavior you no longer tolerate from yourself. Most people have standards, but they are low and unexamined. They tolerate distraction. They tolerate inconsistency. They tolerate breaking promises to themselves. And whatever you tolerate, you strengthen. Excellence begins the moment you raise the minimum, not the maximum. The minimum. You stop asking, "What's the most I can do?" you ask, "What is the least I will accept from myself?" That question reshapes everything, because once your minimum rises, your life follows. Excellence is not about doing extraordinary things. It is about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, showing up on time even when no one would notice if you didn't, preparing when you could get away with improvising, following through when quitting would be easy and socially acceptable. These are identity decisions, and identity is formed through repetition, not inspiration. This is why motivation is unreliable. Motivation responds to emotion. Excellence responds to structure. If your life depends on how you feel, your results will always fluctuate. But if your life is built on systems and standards, excellence becomes automatic. The highest performers in the world do not rely on discipline as force. They rely on discipline as default. They do not ask themselves every day if they will show up. They already decided who they are. And once identity is decided, behavior follows. Think about this carefully. You don't debate brushing your teeth. You don't negotiate whether to breathe. You don't feel heroic for doing them. They are identity-level behaviors. Excellence must be trained the same way, not as an effort, but as a baseline. And the key to doing that is understanding one simple truth. You are always becoming. There is no neutral day. Every day you either reinforce the identity of excellence or you strengthen the identity of delay, comfort, and excuses. You don't drift into excellence. You drift away from it. Excellence requires intention daily. It requires you to show up when nothing exciting is happening, when results are invisible, when progress feels slow, when discipline feels boring. And that boredom is the gateway, because boredom is where most people quit, and where excellence separates itself. The person who keeps going when it feels dull is the person who eventually becomes unstoppable. So understand this clearly. Excellence is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It is built quietly in early mornings, in repeated habits, in standards no one sees. And one day, without warning, the world notices, not because you told them, but because you became undeniable. In the next chapter, we will break down the first practical foundation of daily excellence, how you begin your day, and why mornings quietly decide the direction of your entire life. But for now, sit with this question. If someone watched your life for 30 days, not your words, not your intentions, but only your actions, who would they say you are becoming? Most people believe great days are accidents. They think some mornings are just better. More energy, more clarity, more motivation. So when they wake up tired, distracted, or uninspired, they conclude, today just isn't a good day. And without realizing it, they surrender the day before it even begins. Here is the truth most people never accept. There are no great days by chance. There are only built days. Every day you live is constructed brick by the smallest actions you repeat. Not by how inspired you feel, not by how motivated you wake up, but by what you do consistently, especially when the day feels ordinary. A great day is not something you rise into. It is something you assemble. Most people wake up hoping the day will give them something. Excellence wakes up asking, what will I put into today, because hope is passive. Building is active. And life always rewards builders. Think about this carefully. No house stands because of one brick. No wall collapses because of one brick. But every structure is nothing more than bricks placed daily, patiently, invisibly. Your life works the same way. Every morning is a brick. Every decision is a brick. Every moment you choose discipline over comfort is a brick. Most people don't ruin their lives in dramatic ways. They erode them quietly. They sleep in just this once. They skip the habit just today. They delay the work until tomorrow. Each decision feels harmless, but together they build a life of inconsistency. Excellence understands something simple. Today is not about being perfect. Today is about placing one solid brick That's it. One focused hour. One intentional choice. One small act done properly. This is why great days feel calm, not chaotic. They are not overloaded with ambition. They are anchored in structure. Most people chase intensity. They want days where they feel unstoppable. But intensity fades. Structure remains. Excellence does not ask, "How much can I do today?" It asks, "What is the one thing that makes today count?" When you stop trying to win the whole day and start building it piece by piece, pressure disappears. You no longer need motivation. You only need direction. And direction comes from standards. A builder does not wake up asking if he feels like laying bricks. He knows the wall will not rise without today's work. So he shows up, even when it's boring. Especially when it's boring. This is why boredom is not the enemy of excellence. Boredom is the filter. It filters out everyone who needs excitement to stay consistent. Great days are quiet. They don't announce themselves. They don't feel magical in the moment. They feel normal. And that is why they work. Because excellence is built in normality. Most people quit because they are waiting for days that feel special. But the people who rise understand. Every ordinary day handled well becomes an extraordinary life over time. This is also why daily excellence is perfect for night listening. Because this is not about hype. It is about calm repetition. You don't need to conquer tomorrow. You only need to place tomorrow's brick when it arrives. And then the next. And the next. Momentum is not created by dramatic breakthroughs. It is created by continuity. When you build days instead of chasing them, something shifts psychologically. You stop judging days as good or bad. You start judging them as complete or incomplete. Did I place my brick today? Yes or no? That's it. No emotion. No story. No excuse. This removes anxiety. It removes overthinking. It removes the pressure to feel ready. You don't need a great mood to place a brick. You only need commitment. And once you place enough bricks, something remarkable happens. One day, you wake up and realize your life feels stable, predictable, strong, not exciting, not chaotic, but reliable. And reliability is power. Great days are not loud. They are repeatable. This is why people who master daily excellence look calm. They are not chasing moments. They are stacking days. So, tonight, as you listen, let this sink in gently. Tomorrow does not need to be amazing. Tomorrow only needs to be honest. One brick placed with care. One decision aligned with your standard. One action that proves who you are becoming. That is how great days are built. That is how great lives emerge. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly, daily. Most people believe their life is shaped by big decisions. The career move, the relationship, the breakthrough moment, the turning point everyone can see. But that's not where life is decided. Your life is shaped by invisible decisions. The ones no one applauds. The ones no one records. The ones you barely notice yourself making. These are the decisions that happen quietly, repeatedly, and without drama. What time you actually get out of bed, not what you planned. What you do in the first 10 minutes after waking up, What you choose when no one would ever know if you didn't. What you tolerate from yourself when things feel uncomfortable. These decisions don't look important, but they are foundational. Identity is not built in moments of pressure. It is built in moments of low visibility, when no one is watching, when there is no consequence, when quitting would be easy and socially acceptable. That is where your real standards live. Most people think they have high standards because they talk about them. But standards are not what you believe. They are what you default to. What you default to when tired. What you default to when distracted. What you default to when no reward is immediate. Those defaults are your invisible decisions. And those invisible decisions slowly become identity. You don't wake up one day disciplined. You wake up one day realizing you've been acting disciplined for a long time. You don't suddenly become unfocused. You drift into it through hundreds of small concessions. One skipped habit here. One delayed task there. One excuse that felt harmless. Over time, these choices harden into patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become identity. And identity decides outcomes. This is why two people can live in the same environment, with the same opportunities, and end up in completely different places. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the invisible decisions. One person chooses structure when no one demands it. The other chooses comfort when no one resists it. One person keeps promises to themselves when breaking them would cost nothing. The other lets themselves off the hook because it's not a big deal. Over time, those decisions compound. And compounding is silent. You don't feel yourself getting stronger day by day. You don't feel yourself getting weaker either. Until one day, the gap is obvious. This is why excellence often looks effortless from the outside. People don't see the invisible work. They see the result, but not the thousands of quiet decisions that created it. And here's the part that makes most people uncomfortable. You are already making these invisible decisions every day. The question is not if they exist. The question is who they are shaping you into. Are they building someone reliable, or someone inconsistent, someone disciplined, or someone reactive, someone who acts without negotiation, or someone who delays and explains? Most people never audit these decisions. They live on autopilot. They think life is happening to them, when, in reality, life is responding to how they show up daily. Excellence begins with awareness. You don't need to change everything. You need to notice the small things. Notice where you hesitate. Notice where you delay. Notice where you lower the bar just a little. That's where identity is leaking. The powerful shift is this: start treating invisible decisions as sacred, because they are. The way you handle a quiet morning matters more than how you handle a crisis. The way you act when no one cares matters more than how you perform when everyone is watching. This is why excellence feels boring to most people. It removes drama. It removes intensity. It removes excuses. It replaces them with consistency. And consistency is quiet. No one claps when you keep your word to yourself. No one congratulates you for doing what you said you would do. But every time you do, something inside you strengthens. Trust, self-respect, internal authority. You begin to believe yourself. And once you believe yourself, discipline stops being hard. Because discipline is not force. It is alignment. You are no longer fighting who you are. You are reinforcing it. This is how excellence becomes automatic, not through willpower, but through repeated invisible decisions that train your nervous system what normal is. Normal to start on time. Normal to finish what you start. Normal to act without waiting to feel ready. When that becomes normal, life changes. Quietly, gradually, irreversibly. So tonight, don't think about changing your whole life. Just ask yourself one question. What is one invisible decision I will no longer ignore? One moment tomorrow where you will act with intention, even if no one notices. That is how identity shifts. That is how excellence is built. Brick by invisible brick. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is intensity, pushing harder, forcing more, trying to overpower resistance with motivation. And that's why discipline feels exhausting to them. Because anything that relies on intensity will eventually collapse. Intensity burns hot and burns out. Excellence does not come from how hard you push yourself on your best days. It comes from how reliably you show up on your worst ones. Discipline is not something you do. It is something you are. The moment discipline becomes identity, effort disappears. Think about this carefully. You don't negotiate brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether to stand up when you wake. You don't ask yourself if you feel like doing them. Why? Because they are not tasks. They are identity-level behaviors. Discipline must be trained the same way, not as a heroic act, but as a default setting. Most people fail with discipline because they turn it into a conversation. They ask themselves questions that should never exist. Should I do this today? Can I skip just this once? I'll do it later. Right. Every question weakens authority. Every negotiation hands power to emotion. And emotion always votes for comfort. This is the silent truth. The strongest people don't have more discipline. They have fewer negotiations. They decided who they are once, and they live from that decision. I am someone who trains. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who does not break promises to myself. Once identity is clear, behavior follows. No intensity required. This is why discipline feels heavy to people who treat it as force. They are constantly fighting themselves. But discipline feels light to people who treat it as identity. They are simply being who they already decided to be. This is where the sentence becomes powerful. I don't negotiate with myself. Not because you are rigid, but because clarity removes friction. Negotiation is friction. Every time you debate, you drain energy. Every time you hesitate, you weaken momentum. But when the rule is clear, action becomes automatic. A disciplined identity does not ask, how do I feel today? It asks, what does someone like me do now? And that question changes everything. Because feelings fluctuate. Identity doesn't. Some days you feel sharp. Some days you feel slow. Some days you feel inspired. Some days you feel empty. Identity remains, and identity carries you through emotional noise. This is why relying on motivation is a trap. Motivation is emotional weather. Discipline is climate. You don't build a life on weather. You build it on systems and standards. The people who live at a high level don't wake up asking for motivation. They wake up with rules. Rules remove debate. Debate removes action. This is also why discipline looks boring from the outside. There is no drama, no emotional roller coaster, no heroic struggle. Just repetition, just structure, just consistency. And boring done daily becomes unstoppable. Most people chase intensity because intensity feels meaningful. It feels like progress. But intensity without identity is performance. And performance collapses when no one is watching. Identity holds when it's quiet. This is why discipline is built in silence. Not when you're fired up. Not when someone is cheering. But when you do the work anyway. When the alarm goes off and you stand up without thinking. When you start the task without waiting to feel ready. When you finish what you promised, even when it's inconvenient. Those moments don't feel powerful, but they build power. And over time, something shifts internally. You stop needing external pressure. You stop needing reminders. You stop needing hype. You trust yourself. That trust is rare, and it is priceless. Because once you trust yourself, discipline stops being hard. You are no longer trying to become disciplined. You are protecting who you already are. And here's the part most people never hear. Discipline is not about doing more. It is about removing the option to quit. You don't need more willpower. You need fewer exits. When quitting is not an option, action simplifies. When skipping is not available, consistency emerges. When lowering standards is removed, excellence stabilizes. This is why high performers appear calm. They are not fighting 10 versions of themselves every day. They decided which version is in charge. So tonight, let this settle quietly. Discipline is not something you summon. It is something you install. Through identity, through standards, through non-negotiables, not through intensity. And once discipline becomes identity, life becomes quieter, but stronger. Most people believe motivation is the key to change. They think once they feel motivated, everything will finally fall into place. So they wait. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel ready. And while they wait, life passes. This is the uncomfortable truth. Motivation has never built anything lasting. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unstable. They rise. They fall. They disappear without warning. If your progress depends on motivation, your life will always be inconsistent. Some days you'll feel unstoppable. Most days you won't. And excellence cannot survive on some days. This is why motivation feels powerful in the beginning but useless in the long run. It creates excitement without structure, energy without direction. It makes you want change, but it doesn't make you become different. Here's what's really happening psychologically. Motivation is a chemical response. It's driven by novelty, emotion, and anticipation of reward. That's why new goals feel exciting. That's why new routines feel energizing at first. But the brain adapts quickly. Once novelty fades, motivation collapses. And when motivation disappears, most people stop, not because they are weak, but because they built their habits on emotion instead of identity. This is why motivation fails you every time. It trains you to act only when conditions feel right. And conditions are rarely right. Life is noisy. Energy fluctuates. Resistance appears. Excellence does not wait for alignment. It creates alignment through action. Motivation asks, "How do I feel?" Discipline asks, "What needs to be done?" And that difference decides everything. People who rely on motivation experience constant internal conflict. They wake up debating. They start tasks hesitating. They quit early, justifying. Their mind is always negotiating. And negotiation drains energy. Every internal argument makes action harder. This is why motivated people burn out. They spend more energy thinking about doing the work than actually doing it. The disciplined person avoids this trap entirely. They do not look for motivation. They remove choice. They do not ask if they feel ready. They act because it's scheduled, standard, and expected. This is where psychology becomes power. The brain learns through repetition, not inspiration. When you act without waiting to feel motivated, you retrain your nervous system. You teach it, "I act first." Feelings come later. And over time, something flips. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. Movement generates momentum. Momentum generates confidence. Confidence generates clarity. But it all starts with acting before you feel like it. This is why disciplined people often look calm, not excited. They are not chasing emotional highs. They are running systems. Motivation is chaotic. Systems are stable. Excellence is built on stability. Most people fail because they keep trying to feel their way into action. But feeling follows behavior. If you wait to feel disciplined, you never will. If you act disciplined, the feeling eventually catches up. This is why the phrase matters. Discipline beats motivation every time. Not because motivation is bad, but because motivation is unreliable. It shows up when things are easy. It disappears when things matter. Discipline shows up regardless. And discipline does not require force. It requires design. You don't need to feel motivated to follow a system. You just need to follow the system. This is why high performers structure their lives. Fixed wake-up times, scheduled work blocks, non-negotiable habits. They don't depend on mood. They depend on structure. Structure frees you from emotional decision-making. And emotional decision-making is where most people lose. Think about how many times you've said, "I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it when I feel more energy. I just don't feel it today." That's motivation talking. And motivation always prioritizes comfort. Excellence prioritizes identity. The moment you stop asking how you feel and start acting based on who you are becoming, everything changes. You no longer need hype. You no longer need inspiration. You become reliable. And reliability is rare. Reliable people win because they show up on average days, on boring days, on heavy days, and those are most days. So let this settle quietly. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine. Sparks fade. Engines carry you forward. If you want daily excellence, Stop chasing motivation. Build identity. Build systems. Build standards. And let motivation become a side effect, not a requirement. There is a standard running your life right now. Not the one you talk about. Not the one you aspire to. But the one you quietly accept every single day. And here is the truth most people never confront. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you tolerate. Your results are not a reflection of your goals. They are a reflection of your standards. The standard you live by determines how you wake up, how you work, how you speak to yourself, how long you stay stuck. Most people believe their problems come from lack of motivation, lack of time, or lack of opportunity. But that's not it. They are living inside standards they never consciously chose, standards they drifted into. A standard is not what you say you deserve. A standard is what you allow repeatedly. If you tolerate distraction, distraction becomes your lifestyle. If you tolerate inconsistency, inconsistency becomes your identity. If you tolerate mediocrity, mediocrity becomes normal. And once something feels normal, it no longer feels wrong. That's the danger. Your brain adapts quickly. What once bothered you eventually becomes acceptable. You miss a workout once it feels uncomfortable. You miss it again, it feels justified. You miss it again, it feels normal. And now your standard has shifted. Not by decision, but by tolerance. This is how people slowly drift away from excellence without realizing it. They didn't fail dramatically. They lowered the bar quietly. Standards are enforced in silence. No one announces when they lower them. They just stop holding the line. They stop expecting focus. They stop demanding effort. They stop insisting on follow-through. And the mind adapts to the new minimum. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your current life is perfectly aligned with the standards you are willing to accept. If your days feel rushed, unfocused, and reactive, that's a standard. If your goals stay unfinished, that's a standard. If you constantly settle for good enough, that's a standard. Excellence begins the moment you stop negotiating with your own standards. High performers do not rely on motivation. They rely on non-negotiables. They decide in advance, this is who I am. This is how I operate. This is what I do, even when no one is watching. And then they enforce it. Not emotionally. Not aggressively. Quietly. Consistently. This is why standards are more powerful than goals. Goals are future-focused. Standards are present-moment rules. A goal says, I want to be disciplined. A standard says, I do not skip. A goal says, I want to be focused. A standard says, I don't allow distractions in this hour. A goal hopes. A standard commands. Most people fail because they treat discipline like a preference. They do it when it feels convenient. They drop it when it feels uncomfortable. That's not a standard. That's a suggestion. Standards only work when they are enforced, especially on bad days. Especially when energy is low. Especially when no one would know. That's when the standard proves it's real. Ask yourself honestly, what do you currently tolerate that you know is weakening you? Scrolling when you should be resting. Overworking when you should be focused. Avoiding difficult conversations. Postponing uncomfortable actions. These tolerances are not neutral. They are training you. Every time you tolerate something beneath your potential, you teach your nervous system. This level is acceptable. And once it's acceptable, it repeats. Excellence requires discomfort, not intensity, not dramatic effort, but the discomfort of holding a higher line, the discomfort of saying no, the discomfort of stopping early, the discomfort of doing the boring thing again. This is why excellence looks boring to most people. It's not flashy. It's repetitive. And repetition exposes standards. People who live at a high level don't look heroic. They look consistent. They don't tolerate chaos. They don't tolerate excuses. They don't tolerate internal bargaining. They decide once and live by it daily. Here is a powerful realization. Your environment will always try to lower your standards. Average conversations, distracted routines, comfort-driven culture. If you don't consciously raise your standards, the environment will lower them for you. That's why excellence requires intention. You must decide what is no longer acceptable. Not someday. Now. Not when motivation arrives, but when clarity does. Standards don't require hype. They require honesty. Look at your day. Where do you consistently let yourself off the hook? That is your true standard. And the moment you raise it even slightly, everything shifts. You don't need to change your entire life. You need to change what you tolerate. Because once you stop tolerating what weakens you, you automatically create space for what strengthens you. This is the quiet power of standards. They don't force change. They allow it. And when standards rise, results follow without chasing. So remember this, you don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall or rise to the level of your standards. Choose them carefully and enforce them gently, relentlessly, daily. Most people treat consistency like a moral trait. They think some people are just more disciplined, more driven, more mentally strong. That belief keeps them stuck, because consistency is not about character. It's about psychology. It's a trained response, not a personality gift. No one is born consistent. They become consistent by shaping how their mind reacts to effort, resistance, and time. Most people fail at consistency not because they lack desire, but because they design their lives in a way that makes consistency unlikely. They rely on willpower. They rely on emotion. They rely on memory. And all three fail under pressure. The brain is designed to conserve energy. It prefers comfort. It avoids repetition unless repetition feels safe and predictable. That's why motivation-based systems collapse. Consistency only emerges when the mind stops seeing effort as a threat. This is why consistency is psychological. The mind needs certainty, not excitement. When your routine is predictable, your brain relaxes. When expectations are clear, resistance drops. When actions are familiar, hesitation disappears. But when every day feels like a decision, the brain rebels. Do I do this today? How long should I do it? Is it even working? That internal questioning is not weakness. It's mental overload. The brain is burning energy debating instead of executing. Highly consistent people eliminate debate. They don't wake up asking what they will do. They already know. This reduces cognitive load. And when cognitive load drops, consistency rises. Here's the key insight. Consistency increases when effort becomes predictable, not intense, not exciting, predictable. This is why elite performers look boring. They repeat the same actions at the same time in the same way. And the mind loves this. Predictability tells the nervous system, this is safe. This is normal. We can do this again. That's how habits stabilize. Most people sabotage consistency by making everything too big. They demand massive output. They expect dramatic progress. They aim for perfect execution. And when life interferes, they collapse. Consistency thrives on minimum viable effort, the smallest action you can repeat daily without resistance. That's not lowering standards. That's designing for success. Excellence is not about doing more. It's about never stopping. This is where psychology matters. The brain associates quitting with relief. Every time you quit a habit, the brain learns stopping feels good. So next time resistance appears, quitting feels easier. But every time you continue even lightly, the brain learns we don't stop. That identity compounds. This is why the most dangerous moment is not failure. It's complete stoppage. You can have bad days. You can have low energy days. But if you keep the chain alive, consistency survives. One small action keeps identity intact. This is why consistency is not about perfection. It's about continuity. Break intensity if you must. Never break continuity. Your brain doesn't need you to be impressive. It needs you to be reliable. Reliability builds trust. And when your mind trusts you, resistance fades. Another psychological principle matters here. The brain repeats what it can predict the outcome of. If effort leads to confusion, uncertainty, or self-judgment, the brain avoids it. But if effort leads to completion, even small, the brain engages. This is why tracking matters. Not to impress yourself, but to show your brain evidence of continuity. I showed up. I completed. I followed through. Those signals calm the nervous system. And calm is consistency's best friend. Most people think they need more motivation. They need less chaos. Chaos exhausts the brain. Exhausted brains quit. Structured lives continue. This is why excellence requires rhythm. Same wake-up time. Same focus window. Same movement. Not because it's rigid, but because it reduces friction. And friction is the enemy of consistency. Every time you simplify a decision, you increase the chance of repetition. Every time you remove choice, you increase follow-through. This is why consistency looks effortless from the outside. It's not effortlessness. It's design. Well-designed lives produce consistent behavior naturally. Poorly designed lives require constant willpower and eventually fail. So let this settle quietly. Consistency is not about being tough. It's about being smart with your psychology. Lower resistance. Reduce decisions. Protect continuity. Do less, but do it daily. That's how excellence becomes inevitable. Most people believe change comes from intensity, from sudden breakthroughs, from moments of inspiration so strong they rewrite life overnight. That belief sounds exciting, and it quietly destroys consistency. Because the human brain does not rewire through intensity. It rewires through repetition. Your nervous system does not care how motivated you feel. It cares about what you do again and again. This is why small wins are not small at all. They are neurological. Every time you complete a small action, something subtle happens inside your brain. A signal is sent, not a thought. A signal. The signal says, I follow through. I finish what I start. I keep promises to myself. That signal matters more than your goals. Your brain is a prediction machine. It predicts the future based on past behavior. And when it sees a pattern of completion, even tiny completion, it begins to cooperate instead of resist. This is why small wins feel light. They don't trigger threat. They don't activate avoidance. They don't awaken fear. Big goals scare the brain. Small wins calm it. And a calm brain is a productive brain. Each small win releases a form of dopamine that is different from pleasure dopamine. Not the cheap spike you get from scrolling or distraction, but earned dopamine. Earned dopamine is the chemical of identity reinforcement. It teaches the brain, this behavior is worth repeating. This version of me is reliable. This pattern feels safe. And once the brain feels safe, it stops fighting you. This is why people who chase big transformations often feel exhausted, while people who stack small wins feel steady. Stability beats intensity every time. Small wins also create something most people underestimate: momentum. Momentum is not excitement. It's direction. When you complete one small action, the next action feels lighter. Not because it is easier, but because resistance has already been breached. Resistance is highest at the start. Small wins lower the entry cost of action. This is where streaks come in. A streak is not about perfection. It's about continuity. The brain loves streaks because streaks create narrative, and humans live inside narratives. A streak tells the brain, this is who I am now. This is normal. This is part of my identity. Once behavior becomes normal, it no longer requires motivation. This is why breaking a streak feels painful. Not because the action itself matters, but because identity feels threatened. And this is where the rule never miss twice becomes powerful. Missing once is human. Life happens. Energy fluctuates. But missing twice sends a dangerous signal to the brain. It says, this is who I am again. I fall off. I don't recover. One miss is noise. Two misses is a pattern. Never miss twice protects identity. It removes shame. And shame is the real enemy of consistency. Most people don't quit because they fail. They quit because they judge the failure. They turn one missed day into a story about who they are. And once the story becomes negative, the brain disengages. But when missing once is allowed, and recovery is immediate, the chain survives. Recovery is more important than perfection. This is how excellence is built quietly. Small wins also rebuild self-trust. Self-trust is not confidence. It is evidence. Your mind does not trust your words. It trusts your behavior. Every time you do what you said you would do, even something small, your mind updates its belief about you. I can rely on myself. That belief is rare and powerful. Most people struggle not because they lack discipline, but because their mind does not trust them. It has seen too many broken promises, too many abandoned plans. So when it's time to start again, resistance appears. Small wins heal that relationship. They are apologies made through action. Over time, the mind stops questioning you, and action becomes smoother. This is why consistency feels easier after a while. Not because life gets easier, but because inner conflict decreases. You and your nervous system stop arguing. Small wins also eliminate the need for emotional energy. You no longer need to feel like it. You just do it because it's small. This is critical for nighttime listening, because this chapter removes pressure. It doesn't ask you to be heroic. It doesn't demand transformation. It whispers instead of shouting, you don't need to win the day. You need to complete one thing, one action, one breath, one decision. Tonight, tomorrow, and again the next day. That's how the brain rewires without stress. That's how identity shifts without drama. Excellence does not arrive through force. It arrives through familiarity. When showing up becomes familiar, it becomes effortless. And effortlessness is the true sign of mastery. Remember this. You don't change your life by doing extraordinary things once. You change your life by doing ordinary things without breaking the chain. As long as the chain exists, progress exists. And as long as you never miss twice, you are never behind. You are simply continuing. Most people believe excellence is built when they feel strong. When energy is high, when motivation flows, when everything aligns, that belief feels comforting, and it quietly keeps people average. Because excellence is not built at your best. It is built when you are tired, not exhausted to the point of collapse, but tired enough that excuses feel reasonable, tired enough that no one would blame you for stopping, tired enough that quitting feels justified. That is where excellence begins. When you are tired, the mask comes off. There is no hype, no adrenaline, no external pressure. Only identity remains. When you act while tired, you are no longer powered by emotion. You are powered by who you are. This is why tiredness is such a powerful filter. It separates intention from identity. Anyone can perform when they feel good. Anyone can show discipline when energy is high. But when fatigue enters, the nervous system asks a deeper question. Is this who we are, or was it just a phase? Most people answer that question by stopping. They rest, distract, delay, and tell themselves they'll return tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes a pattern. Excellence answers differently. Excellence does not argue with fatigue. It does not fight tiredness. It simply continues at a lower volume. This is a critical distinction. Excellence is not about intensity when tired. It is about presence. Showing up tired does not mean performing perfectly. It means performing honestly. It means doing the minimum required to keep identity intact. This is why nighttime discipline is so revealing. In the morning, hope is cheap. At night, truth appears. When you are tired, you are closer to your real self. Your defenses are down. Your ego is quieter. Your excuses sound thinner. And the decision you make in that moment writes deeply into your nervous system. If you stop when tired, the brain learns we only do this when it feels good. If you continue even gently, the brain learns this is who we are, regardless of state. That lesson is permanent. This is why elite performers respect fatigue. They don't fear it. They don't glorify it. They use it as training ground. Because when tiredness arrives, discipline becomes clean. There is no emotion left to negotiate with, no motivation to lean on, only standards. And standards are strongest when feelings are weakest. This chapter is not about grinding yourself into the ground. It is about redefining effort. When tired, excellence whispers instead of shouts. It says, just don't disappear. Just stay in the room. Just take one step. This is how burnout is avoided and mastery is built at the same time. Burnout comes from forcing intensity when tired. Excellence comes from maintaining continuity. You don't need to win the day when tired. You need to protect the chain. This is why the most powerful work often happens unseen. Late, quiet, uncelebrated. No one is watching. No one is clapping. And that's exactly why it matters. Because the brain knows when effort is voluntary, when you act tired, without reward. The nervous system marks that behavior as deeply meaningful. It says, this matters enough to continue without payoff. That belief is rare. And once installed, it changes everything. You begin to trust yourself under pressure. You stop fearing low-energy states. You no longer panic when motivation fades, because you know something deeper carries you. Most people collapse mentally when tired. They identify with the fatigue. They believe it means something is wrong. But tiredness is not failure. It is a checkpoint. It asks, will you still be you, here? This is why excellence compounds faster than motivation. Motivation burns hot and fast. Excellence burns low and steady, and low, steady burns last. Nighttime routines matter for this reason, not because nights are magical, but because nights remove illusions. At night, there is no performance, only habit. What you do at night even briefly trains your identity more than anything you do in the morning. A single quiet action while tired can outweigh an entire motivated morning, because it proves something to yourself. I don't need perfect conditions. That belief is freedom. It removes waiting. It removes procrastination. It removes the fantasy of someday. You stop asking, when will I feel ready, and start living from, this is who I am. Excellence does not require high energy. It requires low resistance. And resistance is lowest when you stop demanding brilliance from yourself. Just show up. Just stay aligned. Just keep the signal alive. This is why elite identities are calm. They don't chase peak states. They rely on baseline behavior. And baseline behavior is shaped when tired. So tonight, if you are listening and feel heavy, slow, or dull, this chapter is for you. You are not behind. You are in the exact training ground excellence requires. Do not judge your energy. Do not dramatize fatigue. Just choose one small act of continuity. That act will echo louder than any burst of motivation. Excellence is not loud. It is patient. It waits for tiredness because that's where truth lives. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are voting, not with words, not with intentions, but with actions. Every small decision you make casts a vote for the person you are becoming. When you wake up and reach for your phone instead of your purpose, you vote. When you choose discipline over comfort, you vote. When you avoid what matters, you vote. When you show up quietly and do the work, you vote. You are never standing still. There is no neutral day. There is no pause button on identity. You are becoming someone every single day. Most people think identity is something fixed, something inherited, something you discover. That belief keeps them trapped. Identity is not found. It is built. And it is built in the smallest moments, the moments no one else sees. Who you become is not decided by your biggest goals. It is decided by your most repeated behaviors. The brain does not care what you promise yourself. It only records what you repeatedly do. That is why excellence is not about dramatic change. It is about quiet accumulation. Every time you keep a small promise, identity shifts slightly. Every time you break one, it shifts the other way. And over time, those shifts compound. This is the truth most people never confront. You do not wake up one day and suddenly become disciplined. You become disciplined by acting disciplined when it is inconvenient. You do not suddenly become confident. You become confident by honoring commitments when doubt is present. You do not become excellent by trying harder. You become excellent by refusing to betray your standards. Identity is a pattern, not a declaration. And patterns do not change through motivation. They change through consistency. This is why the idea of starting over is misleading. You are never starting over. You are continuing a trajectory. Every day either reinforces the old pattern or strengthens a new one. There is no reset, only redirection. And redirection happens in the moment of choice. This is why daily excellence is so powerful. It removes pressure from the future. You don't need to become someone extraordinary tomorrow. You need to act in alignment today. Just today. That single day is enough. Because tomorrow is built from today's identity. People often ask, how long does it take to change? That question misses the point. The moment you act differently, identity has already shifted. Change does not announce itself loudly. It installs itself quietly. The first time you act from your higher standard, you may feel fake. The second time, uncomfortable. The third time, familiar. And one day, natural. That is identity formation. You don't rise to who you want to be. You descend to what you repeatedly do. This is why standards matter more than goals. Goals are distant. Standards are lived. Goals live in the future. Standards live in your nervous system. If your standard is to show up even when tired, you become reliable. If your standard is to protect focus, you become dangerous. If your standard is to finish what you start, you become unstoppable. And no one needs to tell you who you are. You feel it. There is a quiet confidence that comes from alignment. Not the loud confidence of ego, but the calm confidence of self-trust. You begin to trust yourself because you have evidence. Not evidence from hype, evidence from repetition. This is the deepest reward of daily excellence. Not success, not recognition, but self-respect. When you respect yourself, life changes. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop explaining inconsistency. You stop outsourcing your standards to circumstances. You move differently. You speak less. You act more. You choose carefully. Because you know every choice writes the next chapter of who you are. This is why excellence is not exhausting. Confusion is exhausting. Indecision is exhausting. Living below your standard is exhausting. Excellence simplifies. It removes debate. When identity is clear, decisions are easy. You don't ask, should I show up? You already know who you are. And when you live this way long enough, something shifts. You stop chasing outcomes. Outcomes start chasing you. Not because you forced them, but because your behavior became predictable. Predictable behavior creates predictable results. This is mastery. Not dramatic. Not flashy, but deeply stable. You become someone others can rely on, including yourself. And that is rare. Most people are talented, but unreliable. Motivated, but inconsistent. Inspired, but scattered. Daily excellence turns chaos into clarity. One small vote at a time. So tonight, as this chapter closes, there is nothing you need to promise. No vow, no dramatic declaration, just awareness. Awareness that tomorrow you will vote again. And the vote will be simple, not heroic, not perfect, but honest. Who will you vote for? The version that waits, or the version that shows up? Because whoever you vote for, that is who you are becoming. Every day. As this audiobook comes to an end, there is nothing dramatic left to say. No final push. No surge of motivation. No promise to become someone new overnight. Because daily excellence does not need excitement. It needs quiet commitment. If there is one thing to remember as you rest tonight, let it be this. You do not change your life in moments of inspiration. You change your life in moments of decision. And those moments happen every day. Not when everything is aligned. Not when you feel ready. But when you choose to show up anyway. Excellence is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not announce itself. It works silently, in the background, shaping you while you sleep, strengthening you while no one is watching, building momentum one ordinary day at a time. You don't need to do more tomorrow. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to push harder. You only need to show up. Just enough. Just today. And then again tomorrow. That is how identity is formed. That is how confidence becomes real. That is how discipline stops feeling heavy and starts feeling natural. Tonight, allow your mind to rest in this idea. You are already on the path. Every small action you've taken, every moment you didn't quit, every day you chose consistency over comfort. It all counts. Even when no one applauded. Even when results felt slow. Even when you were tired. Especially then. Because excellence is built in those moments. So, as you drift into sleep, don't plan your entire future. Just choose one simple standard for tomorrow. One action you will not negotiate with. One promise you will keep. One small win you will protect. That is enough. And if this message resonated with you, if you felt something settle rather than rise, if this felt less like motivation and more like a reminder, leave a quiet mark. In the comments, simply write, "I will show up tomorrow." Not for us, for yourself. Because the person you are becoming does not need loud declarations. They only need you to return again and again and again. Sleep well, and when morning comes, show up calmly, consistently, without drama. That is mastery.